A very good evening to everyone, and a warm welcome to yet another episode of our very interesting webinar series called Nature Writing for Children. The idea about this series is primarily to have these conversations with authors who have written books for children based on themes of nature. So we are very, we have been doing these series for past over 3 years right now, and this is the first time that we have an author who has kind of made a return to the series again. This is the second time we have Katie Bagli with us today, talking about her book. So the interesting part is the last time when we had done this interaction with her, that was sometime in 2022. That time the book that we had chosen was Girl to Hisses, and her, primarily her work in poetry. I remember that time when she had interacted with Chandrama, she had kind of mentioned that she is an author of 30 books. In this meantime, the number has increased to 40 now. So one thing I must admire, that she's a very around 40 books is of what I saw on the website. No, it's
58.
not. Oh, Bob. So I stand corrected. It's 58. But so one thing is for sure, Katie is a very prolific writer, and the amount of books that she keeps churning out is, it would be an envy of any author who would be writing on these topics of very interesting topics of nature. So the book that we have chosen today is Stories of the Forest from India, which is a sequel to an earlier book that she had written, Stories about Trees, which was there. So the conversation today is going to be around her books, her writing process, and more or so about many other things related to writing. So first and foremost, thank you so much, Katie, for joining us. I know there was a little technical hitch, but that's okay as long as we have you. All's well that ends well, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. So before I dive into the main crux of our conversation today, let me start with something interesting that is happening at your end in your life right now. Is I see a lot of those pictures that you're posting with Dr. Jane Goodall. And I think so you are having a great time, mesmerized by that fascinating personality herself. So first I want to start with uh, what is this happening, what are you doing with Dr. Jane Goodall, how, and the fact that you have also been working with the Goodall program that is there. So if you can tell us about that thing, and and your interactions with her right now.
Okay. So Dr. Jane Goodall left India yesterday. She had arrived here on the 15th, and I am a part of Jane Goodall Institute India, and our team hosted her we had 4 different programs on 4 different days. And it was really mesmerizing, as you said, listening to her, the aura she spreads. She is a renowned primatologist and environmentalist and a UN messenger of peace. And even at the age of 90, she is now traveling from country to country, spreading the good word about, making a difference, her message, and, you know, sort of inspiring the youth to taking up action to make a difference for our planet. So that is the reason why she's on this world tour, traveling from country to country. She doesn't even rest for the jet lag. I must say, an amazing lady. And the programs we had involved, we began with an ocean dialogue on the very first day because, you know, the oceans cover more than 71% of our planet. And yet, most of us know very little about the ocean. Most of us hardly know what impact we have on the ocean and what impact the ocean has on us. So we felt, that it is the need of the hour, actually, to introduce ocean literacy into schools and have blue schools also. Children should know what is important. Even somebody living far away from the ocean is impacted by the ocean. It doesn't mean you have to live on the coastline. So that was a program the first day. And on the second day, she was involved in the closing ceremony of the Literature Live Festival, which happens every year in Mumbai at the NCPA. And she spoke about her reasons for hope and it was received by a packed audience. Everybody was thrilled to listen to her. On the third day, we had a Roots and Shoots program. Roots and Shoots is her brainchild. It is a program for the youth to take up action, to motivate them, and take up action to ensure that they make a difference. So we had all the school children who are part of our Roots and Shoots program coming from various places across the country, including Mumbai, of course. And she spoke to them, interacted with them. And on the last day, which was 19th of November, we took her to Sanjay Gandhi National Park, which is a forest in Mumbai's backyard. And there she was received by all the forest officials, the those who guard our natural world. And they spoke about how they are managing to, they're endeavoring to uh, bring about a coexistence between a bustling city which is overflowing with people and the wildlife which is in their backyard, especially the leopard. So that's what we talked about. And now, of course, she has left behind her stamp of memories, and we still dwell in those memories.
I can well imagine that. Katie, just tell me something. Did she read some of your books? And I'm sure you must have presented her a whole set of copies of that. What is her views on children's literature and the need to kind of engage children for topics like environment and safeguarding our wildlife and flora and fauna?
So, I mean, safeguarding conservation can be brought about with different approaches. One is, of course, by through writing. As you know, you can really spread the word and sensitize children, and that's what I also feel. And that's what gives me a lot of satisfaction when I write books on nature, to know that some child will be reading and getting sensitized or becoming aware about things. And of course, we can also sensitize through art. We can sensitize through, you know, drama and actual action in different fields. So that's what she also believes in.
Yeah. So just I remember in the last conversation you had for the Nature Writing for Children series, when you were talking with Chandrima, you had spoken about the fact that you started writing books for children in 2012, and with the special series that you had come out at that time. So,
Yes.
Thor, I just wanted to kind of refresh the whole thing. You know, why do you think it's important to engage children on topics that are considered to be very dark in terms of the kind of devastation that's happening on front of the environment, or issues like climate change and all, which you have been doing very fastidiously, I must say. So why do you think it's important for this audience to be aware of all these things which are considered to be very uh,
It
tough
is
and
if it's important because children need to be prepared for what they're going to face in a few years from now. I mean, they are already facing. We have already, as Dr. Jane Goodall herself said, we are in the dark age where there is no peace, where there's war, and where there is, people don't give a thought to protection of our environment. And there is so much of, there's a sort of a mad rush for infrastructure and development uh, programs and so on. So children need to be sensitized. In fact, it's very nice to see quite often that the children are more aware than the grown-ups. And it is they very often who tell the grown-ups what they feel, you know. So they are the torch bearers. They need to be ready. They are going to be our green champions of tomorrow. They need to be ready to make a better world, definitely. As we know, we have reached the tipping point, what they call, where the emission of carbon dioxide is concerned.
yeah. uh, fascinating there, Katie. But one thing I also wanted to check with you is, when you write these books, and specifically when it comes to children, there's a message of hope that is there, that you kind of
Absolutely.
ingrain it into
Huh,
the
right.
stories and the skits and the poetry. So how important you think that aspect is? And the second thing I wanted you to touch upon is most of our children, we are today living in a largely urbanized world that is there, right? Cities, and children are growing up in that atmosphere. How difficult it is for them to interact with the natural world, and b, how do you think books can enable that connection with nature?
Yeah, right. So it is important, first of all, as you said, children are being distanced from the natural world because of all our digital gadgets, and they're actually suffering from nature deficit disorder, what we call. So it is important for that distance to be, bridged, so that the best way to do it is to take them out in the field, to take them out in the open, make them feel the soil, make them walk bare feet on the ground. I've done that very often. And I'd had a poetry session once, a poetry workshop, where the teacher was innovative enough to say, let's have the poetry session instead of in the school, between the walls of the school, let's do it in a garden. And I stayed close to a place called Five Gardens. So we went to one of those five gardens, and it was so lovely out in the open, sitting on the grass, conducting the poetry workshop. And of course, there was a mat. The children were sitting on the mat. And at the end of it, I suggested, why don't you all remove your shoes and socks and just run around? So it was very strange to watch them. At first, some of the children were very cautious. They just touched the grass with the tips of their toes, as if it was something deadly. And then they got to feel, they got the wild instinct into them. And then in a few minutes, they were just running bizarre. And it was so wonderful to watch them. They were enjoying themselves, just running on the grass. They were earthing themselves at that point. And as you were talking about your first point, yes, things are grim, but you know, through the books, through the storybooks, we can make light even a heavy, difficult, taxing problem by putting it into a very interesting story form, or making poetry out of it, or making a skit out of it, and you know, bringing the point in a very subtle manner, making sure it sort of the child imbibes the point, but at the same time, they don't feel the gloom and the doom about it. So it is an incidental way of realizing what is happening and how they should cope up with this, with the problems that we face.
Fascinating. Yeah. So one thing also I wanted to talk to you about is, you, in addition to the books and the things that you write, you also do all these very engaging sessions, workshops, and sessions with children. So I just wanted to what do you do in these sessions, specifically when you're talking about nature and everything? And has there been any cases where you have drawn ideas from these sessions which have been incorporated, say, in one of your storybooks, or things like that? Some of those conversations have gone in.
Uh, yeah, I also do, in addition to, of course, writing, I conduct nature trails, and then I do workshops on doodling, cartoons of fruits and veggies. We call it veggie tunes and fruity tunes. So make them write little captions about it, make it humorous, make it fun. Even cookies, they can make cartoons of those. And I have incorporated a lot of facts of nature into stories. Yeah. And even, okay, whatever workshops I have conducted, yes, I have sort of tried to use whatever my experiences were in the workshop into my storytelling. Right. With that, what I learned through the workshops, I put into my work of writing.
Yes. And how do you keep yourself updated, in the sense, there's a lot of, when one reads your book, there's a lot of research that goes into the kind of,
Yes.
you know you're kind of like, like mothers feed their children, healthy stuff, kind of, packaged in a very, kind of,
Um,
the way you
we
package your
do.
stories and everything, it's creatively done, but there's at the end of the day there's a lot of factual thing with it. So how do
You're
you do your
right.
research?
The facts have to be there. Fortunately, 12 years back, when you were pointing out to 12 years back, or it's now 13 years back, I had joined Bombay Natural History Society as an active member, and I had taken up various courses at that time, with BNHS on entomology and ornithology and biodiversity, and that really helped a lot. We used to, of course, the course was not just bookwork. It involved a lot of going out into the field and exploring, and I still do it to this day. Also, going out into the field with children, exploring, taking tree walks and such. So every time we come across nature, is so fascinating. There is no amount of facts in nature. There is no end to it. It's infinite, you can say. And there's always something new to learn. Of course, there's a lot of research also involved when you're writing. Definitely a lot of research and updating ourselves through through the net as well as through books. And yeah, so that helps. We need to be updated. We need to do a lot of research. Definitely.
So I will come to the book of the topic today, that the stories from a forest of India. So if I were to talk, this is a sequel to the first book that you had, stories about trees. So if you can just take us to the genesis of A, let's start with the story of trees and then the stories of the forest. How did you come up across this plan? The idea of writing books on trees and then forest subsequently, and are you following it up with another update on that volume kind
Yes.
of a thing?
So that is the idea of my publisher, Mr. Paresh Boa, who is also quite a nature lover. And he, in fact, asked me to write stories about trees, common trees of India. And he said, why not make it into a series? And that's how Stories of Forests from India came about. And I really enjoyed writing this book, Stories of Forests, because of the simple fact that I've traveled to these forests, most of them, not all of them. And there was always something to remember, some memory which, had enchanted me in one of those forests. And that helped me into making stories about these forests. And there were several incidents which were real life incidents, which I have woven into stories also here. It's going to be followed by stories of rivers of India, he wants to write about, and stories of mountains of India. So I don't know how many stories there will be. So I'm very happy because I have all this work in front of me, for me.
So you have already a set series that is running. That's fascinating. Coming to this book, the stories of the forest. I wanted to check with you, as you said, you have visited more. Which of these forests that you have talked about, forests from across the landscape of India, from north to south to east to west? Which of these landscapes really touches your heart and is your favorite one? And which of these is your one of your favorite stories, if I may ask?
Actually, every forest has its own beauty. It's difficult to say which one is the favorite. Every forest has its own typical biodiversity. I mean, the forests are different. Some of them are tropical forests. Some of them are mountain forests. The Himalayas are beautiful. And 1 minute. So it's really difficult to say which one touched my heart the most. Then there is a very quaint forest in Manipur, which is a small, you can just say, it's a floating
Floating island, yeah.
vegetation on the lake,
Yes.
Lokta. Yeah. And that comprises the forest where there are dancing deer. So there is some kind of, every forest is a jewel by itself. It has its own speciality, its own beauty, and it's difficult to really rank them. But I mean, so that is the India is fortunate to have so many kinds of geographical features, and that has led to so many different types of forests containing so much of biodiversity. I think India ranks seventh in the world of having that much amount of biodiversity.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I
So
can't pinpoint to any one forest.
okay, so I'll just talk about the stories that are there in the book
Yeah.
itself. There. So you have touched upon some very through your very interesting stories that you have kind of so the structure I really liked. One is of course the factual data that kind of comes at first, and there's a
Huh.
fictional story that follows the thing. Now, in these stories, you have covered some very interesting aspects as well, be it poaching, be it the work that forest guards are doing. In fact, the Manipur story there you had about the kind of poaching they do of these floating islands, and
Yeah.
the way you weave in that forest guard story itself. So how did you choose these set of stories, and were they incidental, so that you went to these places and you kind of you spoke to people and all? Uh, or were they something that you kind of sat and imagined and then weaved the narrative around those spaces?
It it was a mixture of both because, as I told you, some of the forests I've actually been and I've felt and I've experienced. So it was easy to write stories about those forests. Um, for example, yes, about Chopta in the Himalayas, where there's a group of tourists, and then it's nighttime, and two of them, wander off somewhere. They get separated from the group, and they they're left behind, and then they spend the entire night up in the mountains. This had actually happened when I had gone long ago to Chopta with BNHS. So such things do help. Those are memories which become into stories. But then there are forests which I haven't visited, like Meghalaya, which has the living bridges, and it's in my bucket list. I have to go there. The Sundarbans I have still not been. So there, of course, I've done a lot of reading and research and imagination to weave into stories.
Fascinating. I must compliment you because the Sundarban stories I really liked about the father and the son, and
Uh,
uh, how they discovered different aspects, on their shipping trip itself. Yeah.
yeah.
So it's a fascinating. So coming to that thing. So I would also want you to touch upon the fact that when you're writing these stories, how do you kind of structure them? Uh, so say when you're beginning a book or something like that, what comes first, the story idea, the ecological facts that you want to highlight, or the audience that you want to engage?
Uh, the audience is at the back of my mind. I know, I mean, it's going to be children, but it's also going to be adults. These kind of books are appreciated by children as well as adults. But initially, yes, it's the plot, it's the idea which is most important. And then come the characters. But the characters, if you notice, most of them are what we call the chief uh, animals or plants, whatever that is in that forest, the flagstone species of that forest. This is what I have selected to write the story about. Yeah. And then, of course, then you add to the description comes automatically. You know what the forest looks like, the setting, the entire setting. You choose the most interesting parts, like the living bridge of Meghalaya, or you know the alpine forests of the Himalayas. So that becomes your setting. Right.
And if I may ask you, and this is a question, what is your process of writing? So I'll say, like, is it a kind of a discipline that you follow? You write couple of hours every day, or how do you make these notes different there? Is there a specific space that you kind of work in? And if you are going through these writer's block, what do you do when you're going through these,
When you're writing about nature, generally there's no writer's block. There's so much to write, and in fact, you have to curb yourself. And the process is, for me, it is actually very haphazard. Sorry to say, because it depends upon day to day, the work involved, the other things which distract you, or there may be some school visit involved. So particular, I don't have any particular hours when I write. Um, I write under any conditions, even if the TV is there on in the house. I manage to write. Sometimes I don't like to sit up late in the night, nor do I get up early in the morning to begin. Most of my writing is in the daytime, you know, and yeah, so I just do it whenever I can and whenever I can enjoy doing it. Though I think after spending so many 13 years of writing, I should discipline myself to a more structured form of writing.
Yeah. No, if you had something like that, it will sound very nice that you have some prescription for would-be writers that you should write, 8 hours every day
Yeah,
and those kind of things. So,
but
what is
generally,
and how do you? Yeah, sorry.
sorry, no, what I do is generally I just write a short summary, as I told you, of the idea and the plot. I just note it down, and then whatever new things I sometimes, you're in, when you're just about to go to bed, some idea comes into your mind. So I get up and quickly jot it down so that I don't forget to add it to my story. That can also happen.
Yeah. Speaking about that, I had one question to you. In much of your books, like The Flight of the Pink-Headed Ducks and all, you bring attention to elusive species. So I just wondered, your thing is, what is the objective when you kind of look at that thing? And uh, have you encountered, some of these little known species in real life as well?
Um, no, actually, yeah, the pink-headed duck was written quite a long time ago. Of course, I have not encountered the pink-headed duck itself because
Of course, yeah.
it is very,
Yeah.
I mean, people haven't seen it for a number of years. The great Indian bustard also I haven't encountered, nor have I encountered the red panda, nor the gangetic dolphin. So all these were through the stories were through research, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And what has been the objective? So when you write about these stories about these animals that kind of, again, from from a point of view that they are very dire again, most of these are on the verge of extinction or they have gone extinct,
Yeah.
themselves.
Right.
So when you write about them, what is the objective that you have to bring A, the wonder,
Yeah.
or B,
Sorry.
yes.
The objective is to, um, you know, make sure that people are sensitized. The children who read should be sensitized about these animals. They should know that they need to be protected. That they are there. I mean, they should not just become extinct and become pictures in a book, coffee table book. That's not what should happen. So if the realization comes to children that we need to protect animals, so we need to protect the forest. So we need to ensure that, uh, somehow our forests are valuable. We need them. The importance of the forest, everything is connected. So it's not just the animals alone which need to be protected. Everything around the entire habitat needs to be protected. That's what.
Yeah. So one thing I kind of noticed in your different books that is there are a lot of among all the animals, the fauna, as you might say, birds play a very important role. There are a lot of birds, and you seem to find birds almost everywhere. I can
Yeah.
also overhear a lot of birds in the background right now.
And
So,
can you? They come every evening to my balcony, and they sing their last evening song. I put bird feed on my balcony. So, it's nice where I'm sitting right now. My I get a view of my balcony and I have a lot of plants. And I also put bowls of water where they come and swim and splash about and enjoy themselves. So that gives me the thrill, and that also motivates me to write.
interesting. So yeah, that was my second thing I was coming to. While we might be disconnected with nature in many ways, how do you think, like the one you suggested right now, do you think this we can create these small connection with nature by, say, looking at the birds and birding and all these small parks that are there
Definitely.
and insect walks? So what do you think is the way that we can reconnect with nature in small micro ways, and then look at the macro ones if we ever get a chance to go to all these tiger
Right.
reserves and national
Yeah,
parks?
yeah, of course. So first of all, I feel in this should happen in school more and more of it. There are teachers who take children out, in the garden and conduct classes under a tree. Um, you know, I wish everybody would go and hug a tree every single day, whichever tree is close to their house. You feel so connected. Or just make children sit under a tree and look up at the canopy and look at the network of branches and leaves and all the creatures that are there. You feel something totally different. Just going into any green area is therapeutic. In fact, doctors also suggest, you know, that hospitals should have a beautiful garden around them, and that is therapeutic. It is calming, it is soothing. So it's very important, especially education. In fact, I have even conducted workshops for teachers where education can be around nature. You know, every subject is related to nature, whether it is maths or geography or physics or chemistry. You just go into a garden, look at those flowers, look at the grass, feel the bark of a tree. It is all there. And that's how you learn, not segregated subjects from textbooks. That's what I feel.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, the nature, the connection. Yes, we seem to be losing on it, but yes, it's very important that we do. Finally, coming to there's a question that a lot of people ask. If you are a nature, you write books on nature like you do. Is it a career option that people can pursue? Does it pay well enough to be an author, or is it a tough life in that sense?
Uh, it's just, it's just the fulfillment that is important, I feel. The fulfillment of what I'm doing, of writing for nature, it gives me immense amount of satisfaction. And I feel that is most important. You know, I don't, I was just talking to a friend this morning. As an author, I'm not the kind of author who looks into the marketing or to the business factor. I mean, I'm comfortable where I am. I don't wish to earn a lot of money, but I want to earn a lot of regard from children. I want to, be connected with children, and I want to make sure that they, you know, resound to what I write. They react to what I write in a positive way. That is important.
If I were to ask you, Katie, what is it that um, the kind of legacy that you're working towards? What is it, the purpose, that broader purpose that you kind of working through your books and through your thing? Is there something specific that you have in mind in terms of kind of evangelizing the whole? Are you an activist who is kind of using her own
Uh,
concerns and
I'm not a activist in the sense of an activist. I don't go for campaigns and things like that. But I feel I do it in a gentler manner by writing books, by going to schools, storytelling, interacting with children, answering their questions related to my books. I think that's the way I feel, I'm doing my bit for the planet.
fascinating? And in your interaction with all these kids, if you can share with us some of the interesting conversations that you had, some of the comments that you got from children based on your books, they read something, and how has that been? If you can share some of those comments with us.
Um, Yes, quite often children come and say, I mean, I don't recognize them because they grow up so fast and they change so fast. But then some young girl will come and tell me, so many years back you had come to my school and you read this book and I really liked it. And that's what made me interested in nature. This has happened very often. And I think that's the biggest gratitude I can ask for, you know. So there are children who have become converted into nature, through my writing. I
Hmm.
am I'm really, really, really happy to know that. So
Yeah. Yeah. Finally, what will be your message to, say, would be writers who are wishing to kind of explore the genre of nature writing? If you can kind of share some of the tips that you would give to them, what is it that they should be focusing on? How should anyone wanting to be a nature writer, for that matter, and specifically for children, what are the things that they need to pay attention to?
So what they need to do is, okay, read a lot, definitely read a lot, and explore a lot out in the wild. There's a lot to explore. Even if it is an urban area, if it is a simple park in the middle of the city, there is still a lot to learn. Maybe there's a spider, or maybe there's a caterpillar, or something to learn from, or feel the grass, feel the soil. Just run your hand through the soil and see what's inside. All that is important. Get into it, immerse yourself into nature. Then you will be able to write about nature. And um, yeah, you write, whatever you write is not what you think you should write. It should be something which comes from the heart. Because if you do any kind of a job from your heart, that is when you're doing your best, I feel. So
Okay. Okay. And
that's my
who would
message.
you say, you said read a lot. Who would I, if I were to ask you, who are your favorite authors in that sense, that you feel have been, have done good work or kind of inspired you towards, writing
There are
itself?
quite a few. Yes. My biggest favorite author is Ruskin Bond because his style is so lucid, it sounds so simple, and it takes you, you can see the pictures he paints with his words. And I also enjoyed reading a lot, nearly all of Gerald Darrell's books, then books written by James Herriot. There were foreign authors also, but yes, Indian authors too. Yeah. So
So
Ruskin
I
Bond is a
must
great Indian author.
so I must say you share one thing in common with Ruskin Bond. When I had interviewed him, he had spoken about how the importance of windows, specifically windows that look outward, for a writer. And I see you are sitting
Huh.
in front of the window, and that
Right.
is a
Yes, yes. So it's a window to the world, I can say. Right.
yeah. So that's an interesting connection. So you have spoken about the books that are coming in the pipeline. What are the other, because you seem to be surprising us with so many different. I met you at one of these events where you were that book on
Yes.
Shodo Shark. Yes, that was there.
Right, right, right.
So if you can just
That
give
book
us
I
a
had
kind of
co-authored.
perspective on those.
Sorry?
Yeah, so if you can give us a perspective on the different projects that you're working on, it will just give us an idea of the sheer scope of work that you're doing.
Right. So, there are also books like Chodoshak, as you know, which tend to sort of remind people of ancient wisdom and ancient traditions and cultures. Like Chodoshak was about the 14 leaf, leafy vegetables, or 14 leaves, you can say, which are cooked into a curry on by Bengalis on the eve of Naraka, on the eve of Kali Chodas, you can say. And so they light 14 diyas, and they also believe in ghosts, So there were friendly ghosts in the book and such. So this is sort of bringing out the culture and to show how our ancient culture is intertwined with nature. Similarly, there was, which I had co-authored, this book I had co-authored with Vijaya Chakravarti. There was another book before that also, which was called God's Greens and Gripping Tales. It was about the 21 leaves which are offered to Lord Ganesh on Ganesh Chaturthi. And every leaf has a story behind it. So again, bringing out, so in a way, stories help to conserve and protect our wildlife. When you have a story about something, you get sensitized, you get to know more about it, and you tend to protect it. So that is also important.
Yes, and there was another book that I don't remember the title. It was based on the I think so the Dadar Parsi colony, the kind of
Ah, so of feathers and wings. So it was all
yes
about
of
the birds with the setting Dada Pasi colony. So because in here in our Dada Pasi colony, we do have quite a few birds coming in and a variety of birds. It's surprising to know that birds like the peregrine falcon also come, and of course even the grey hornbill. And people have observed the entire process of the nesting of the hornbill in the hollow of the tree and the chicks flying out. So, so it's fun. So that's why I thought, I would write about birds along with another friend, Zareen Vilji, birds of Parsi colony.
Yeah, because I've been a Mumbaiker, so I never knew about these. The only place for nature in Mumbai is Sanjay Gandhi National Park, and you don't know that these are pockets of green and
Right.
great biodiversity within the city itself.
So nature is very resilient, even in a very urban area. I mean, if you keep some land bare and unconcretized, you'll be amazed at the kind of biodiversity that comes up from time to time. During the monsoons, you get all kinds of wild flora coming and growing. And because of that, you get all kinds of butterflies and caterpillars. So the fauna also comes in. Nature is very resilient and can recover very fast. It can rebound given a chance. I feel, you know. So
Wonderful. So on that note, I would, I'd like to thank you for joining us today for this conversation, whatever the technical glitches might be, but it was a fun conversation I had with you, kind of catching up again on, all these books that you have authored interim in the period between our first interaction 2 years back and now. Thank you so much for your time, and to all our viewers. If you want to check out the books that have been written by Katie, buy them out, and also engage with her. Her website is there, katiebagli.com, right, Katie? If I'm not,
yeah,
yes.
thank you
So
so much, Shashwat. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. It was completely my pleasure to be here on board. Thank you.
thank you so
And
much,
thank you
and
to the viewers also.
thank you so much. We'll meet again. Thank you, and till our next session, we'll see again. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you.